y'all, welcome back to From the Holler. We're going to do this real quick because of the big fireball and there is no way to control that, okay? Welcome back to the channel, y'all. This evening I am on my way, and I apologize, I am on my way to interview my good friend Melanie and get her story of surviving addiction. Woo, mercy, y'all, that sunshine. I told you all on Wednesday during our, y'all, it's just one of them things. During our live chat and check-in Wednesday, how we met, y'all, she is just an awesome person, and I can't wait for you guys to get to know her, to hear her story, and I think you guys are going to fall in love with her just like I have. She is a best friend, a sister, a confidant. She's awesome. So we're fixing to turn into, woo, Lord have mercy. Nope. We're fixing to turn in her driveway. So maybe I can get rid of some of the sun. Let's go talk to Melanie. Hey y'all, welcome back to From the Holler. If you're new around here, my name is Missy, and today we are sitting here having a chat with one of my best friends, Miss Melanie, and she is going to be telling us her story of surviving addiction and how she made it through. She is also a grandparent that was raising your grandchild, and we're going to hear all about that too. Thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
I'm so glad. I love you so much.
I love you.
First things first, I've got to get this out of the way. You do understand that this is going to be shared with my YouTube channel, and you are okay with that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I am going to sit over here off to the side, and I'm actually going to turn my mic off, and I'm just going to let you talk and tell your story, and I'll be the Kleenex getter if we need that, so go right ahead.
Okay. Well, my story is with my oldest daughter, Alexis. She became a parent at a very young age. She was 17, and for the first year and a half, she was amazing. She finished school, graduated, she worked 2 jobs, she was going to college, out on her own, raising her baby, doing amazing. And then she fell in love with a guy that had been clean and sober for 9 months. But that didn't last very long. He fell back into addiction and got her into it. And their drug of choice was heroin. So my grandson Riley, he was being bounced back and forth between my daughter and his biological father, which really it was more his other grandmother, because his father lived with his grandmother. And I started to see some red flags with Alexis, like she looked high, or I picked her up from work one night and I had to stop and pull over so that she could throw up.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing at the time that was a withdrawal symptom. She started spending less and less time with her son. And he was about 2.5 when I got a call from his other grandmother and she said, I've got to go out of town. Can you take Riley for a couple of days. I've got family stuff I've got to take care of. I said, absolutely. So I took Riley, and 3 weeks went by. I didn't hear from anybody.
Wow.
I didn't hear from my daughter. I didn't hear from Riley's father. I didn't hear from Riley's grandmother. And finally my daughter called me. And I knew at this point that she was pretty deep into it. She couldn't hold a job, living off the system, not concerned with her son anymore, not showing up for family gatherings, needing money, all the typical signs. So anyway, about 3 weeks in, Riley had a bedroom at my house. I had him on a schedule. I had him in preschool. I got a call from Alexis, and she didn't even ask about Riley. And I asked her, I said, is Riley's grandmother back from the family stuff? And she's like, yeah, she was back the same day. Why? I said, well, I've still got Riley, and I'm keeping him. Because I saw the writing on the wall. I saw that my daughter was going downhill quick. And, technically she was an adult. And I couldn't save her from herself. But I could make a difference in that child's life. And I didn't want him going into the system. And I talked to a few people in professionals, and they said, don't let the system get involved, because there's no guarantee you'll get them.
Right.
So I took a hard stand, and I said, I'm going to keep him. He's doing good. And I didn't make it legal for a few years, but in that time, I watched Alexis really, really go downhill. So many things. I found her outside a bus station, certainly looking like a prostitute. I picked her up, and she was, nodding off in the car, like her eyes were rolling back in her head, and no, I'm not sleeping, Mom, I'm not sleeping. And she didn't confess or own up to it right away, but I could see it. And my faith is very important to me, as you know. And I prayed a lot about it. And God clearly told me she'll get to the other side of this. I had no idea it would take 9 years. So now I've got a 3-year-old. All my other kids are grown and doing their own thing, and it was supposed to be empty nest for me. But we made it work, and I had all girls, so this was my son, I guess, that I never had. And all the trials that go along with raising a kid, especially a boy when you're used to all girls. That was a lot to get used to, but, getting him into school and doctor's appointments, and we were in New York, and luckily we lived in a small community, and I knew everybody, kind of like it is here, so the pediatrician would let me take him to appointments and make the appointments, and dentists and so on. Well, it came time for him to get into kindergarten, and I needed something that gave me permission.
Right.
And that's when I took the first step, and I had them sign a custody agreement. It wasn't through the courts, but it was notarized, and it gave me permission to make the medical and educational decisions for him. And in this time, Alexa started with her legal issues. She would get arrested, mainly for paraphernalia. Of course, she wouldn't call me because I always told her not to waste her one phone call on me, so she knew better. But at the same time, that wasn't good because then I didn't really know what was going on. She hid a lot from me. She got in with all kinds of bad people and got in with a dirty detective and was a confidential informant for him, but he ended up getting fired because he gave her money to go on a buy and then did the drugs with her.
What?
So he got fired and she got sent to jail. That was the first 6-month stint in jail. And that was tough. Now, mind you, growing up as a teenager, before she had Riley, she was not a partier. She wasn't a drinker. She couldn't stand to be around people smoking pot. Like, she was not a partier. And not that she was a good girl either necessarily, but, you know, just not a partier. And I was really hoping that it was going to be a quick thing. You know, she was going to sow her oats, I guess, you know, experiment, whatever, and then be out and go back to being the great mom that she started out the first year and a half of Riley's life.
Yeah.
I think back now on the 9 years that she fought addiction and the toll it took on me, because I couldn't beat it out of her, I couldn't love it out of her. I had to sit back and watch her hit what I always thought was rock bottom, and then rock bottom had a trap door.
Yeah.
Going through jobs left and right, most of the time not even, you know, employed, not helping raise her son in any way, financially, physically, emotionally. And, you know, his dad doesn't suffer from addiction issues, but he's a bartender, he's a partier, he's not, in my opinion, not responsible even today. So he was no help either. I was in a marriage at the time that my husband at the time did not think that I should have taken custody, so that marriage ended pretty quick. Yeah, it was a lot of scary nights going down to the streets of Schenectady to pull my daughter off the streets because she was high, passed out at a bus stop, or I remember one night, 2 o'clock in the morning, I went to get her and I was turning onto the road that she was on, and as I turned, somebody got shot on the corner. And I thought, dear Lord, just let us make it out of here alive. And especially after she got in with the dirty detective, because I didn't know who I could call. Because who in the police force
is just like
him. You know, I know that she had dealers come to her house, and she doesn't remember exactly what happened, but I'm pretty sure 2 of them had their way with her.
Oh my gosh.
She would take Riley every once in a while. We had to get on a city bus one time and pull him out of her arms because she was taking him on a bye. She had my car one day, and he had one of my old phones. It didn't have service on it, but it had a camera, it had games, whatever. And he recorded her taking him on a bye one day. And I, of course, I stopped that after I found that out. She could no longer leave my house with him because she was taking him places that, again, I couldn't save her from herself, but I had to protect him.
Right.
And I prayed and prayed and prayed, and God kept saying, she's going to get to the other side. And at one point he said, she's going to get to the other side and she's going to change people's lives. And I thought, God, I know it's in your time, but I need this to happen. Like, I can't. This mama's tired. I can't do it.
You need to see some sort of light at the end of the tunnel here.
And, there would be times like when she went to jail the first time, she was in for, I think, 4 months. She got out. It was a 6-month sentence, and she got out for good behavior. So I'm thinking, okay, she's been sober in jail. She's good. I made a place for her at my house, and she had her own bedroom, and I was going to help her get back on her feet. And I don't even think that lasted 6 weeks. And she was back on the street and doing drugs. And it just broke my heart. And every time there was that little glimpse, I would be cautiously optimistic, but always waiting for the phone call. So then I made plans to move to Tennessee because I needed out of New York. I couldn't handle it anymore. And she came over to my house. Clearly she was high. And she had 10 bindles of heroin in her bra. And that's when I said, I called the police. I said, you've got to come get her. She can't be here. I've got to take care of her son. And they did. They came and got her, and she went back to jail. And I moved to Tennessee.
While she was in jail?
While she was in jail.
Wow.
I had her served with the legal papers through family court at the jail. She was in no position to argue with me. So she signed them. And I moved down here. And that was honestly the best thing because my mental health got so much better just being out of New York, not having it in my face all the time. And also because she was arrested at my house, they considered it a domestic dispute, even though there was no violence. They still considered it a domestic issue. So they put a 1-year restraining order so she couldn't contact me. And I knew, I could sleep at night. Even though I couldn't talk to her, I could sleep at night because she was in jail, so I knew she was pretty safe.
Yeah.
And I'll, I laugh about it now, but she'll tell you that probably saved her life, me having her arrested. And that's the hardest thing as a mom to do, to have your child arrested. And we were probably 4 or 5 years into it, maybe 5 years into her addiction at that point. So it had been this roller coaster with her for 5 years. And I remember going to court right before I moved to Tennessee. It was her sentencing. And I remember when she came out shackled and the look she gave me of hatred.
Mm-hmm.
It just broke my heart. And I had written a letter to the judge and said, you know, she had been arrested several times, all the time, every time her charges had been reduced or dropped. You're not doing her any favors. Like, you've got to get her off the street. Please, please punish her this time long enough so that she can kind of get her head clear.
Right.
And gosh, that court date, especially the way that she looked at me, I'll never forget that. And I walked out of the courtroom that night, and I just collapsed in the parking lot sobbing, and I said, God, I know you said that she'd get to the other side, but I need her to either be clean or I need her to be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I thought the night I got her arrested was the worst thing I could feel as a mother. But that's the worst. That was the worst moment, because I needed her to be clean or I needed her to be dead, because I needed it to be over. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. So anyway, she did spend about 6 months in jail. I moved down here. I got myself stronger. I ended up getting married again. Which that had pros and cons to it too. You know, but I started over, and I built a life down here. She got out of jail. She got into a halfway house. It was a year-long program. And I would bring Riley up to New York, and I would visit her. And first time I brought him up, that she had a day pass where she could actually leave the halfway house. I took her out to lunch, and it was me and her and Riley and her sisters and my mother, and there was a group of us. And I had a glass of wine with lunch, and she went ballistic on me, because how dare I jeopardize her sobriety? And it never occurred to me that could be a problem. Alcohol wasn't her issue. You know, we were at a restaurant having lunch, and I had one glass of wine. Well, it sparked a horrendous fight between her and I. And I went and I dropped her off at the halfway house, and as I was driving away, God clearly said to me, she'll get there, but not this time. And I was like, ugh. She had almost a year of sobriety under her belt at this point. Like, I'm like, what do you mean not this time? Well, she finished the program at the halfway house. She got her own apartment, still in her program. But as soon as she had that freedom, even though she was in a program, and she got her own apartment, she got right back into the drugs. I brought her down here for a visit, and when I picked her up at the bus station, she was maybe 80 pounds soaking wet, all sunken in. I didn't even recognize her.
Wow.
Did not even recognize her.
I can't imagine that. No one.
You know her.
Yeah.
I
that's unreal to me.
She was just, she looked like a skeleton, and I knew at that point that she was back into it. And then she got back together with the guy that originally got her into it. And it was such a vicious cycle. But it was easier being 1,000 miles away. I had a buffer there. I worked with her. She had set phone calls with Riley certain times, certain days of the week, and I just kept praying and just kept praying. And I would bring him for visits now and then. She ended up coming down here a couple of times, short visits, and then it was August of 2017. Riley, and gosh, I had him 7 years at this point. It was a planned phone call. It was a Wednesday night. She called him at 7:30. Well, we had been at church. He was practicing for a youth play. And rehearsal was going a little longer than normal, so Alexis called, and I said, I'm going to have him call you back. He's not out of practice yet. He's still at church. So I had him call her back, and she was in the bathroom of a pizza place in Schenectady, and she had just shot up. And Riley called, and she said, oh, hang on, baby, let me get outside where I can hear you. And she walked out of the pizza place, and she collapsed on the sidewalk. And Riley brought me the phone and said, something's wrong with Mommy. People are trying to wake her up. She won't wake up. If you ask me, that was God ordained, because he was late for his phone call. And if he hadn't called her, she probably would have passed out in that bathroom, and God only knows how long she would have laid there before somebody found her. But because she was on the sidewalk, she was found pretty quick. And the phone, I took the phone from Riley, and I'm screaming into the phone, and I'm trying to get somebody's attention. I could hear, we called 911, the ambulance is on its way. Like, I can hear all these people trying to help her, but no matter how loud I screamed into the phone, I couldn't get anybody's attention. And I'm 1,000 miles away, and my kid is, for all intents and purposes, dead.
Yeah.
So I listened for 32 minutes. 32 minutes while the ambulance got there, Narcaned her twice, and brought her back to life. And within 15 minutes, she was back on the street. Signed herself out. She was back on the street. Now she's in full-blown withdrawals because the Narcan doesn't take it out of your system. It just makes you
lose your
high. So now she wants to go get high again. And she's arguing with me that, no, that didn't just happen. And I'm like, Alexis, I listened from 1,000 miles away for 32 minutes. It most certainly did happen. And I was so mad at that point, because I was like, what if that had been the last time your son heard from you? What? How would that shape his little brain and his life? Like, I was so angry with her. Just didn't understand how she could not care. And I still have a hard time with that sometimes, but anyway. So that was in August, and it was still another 6 months of ups and downs. And finally, God said, go get her. Go get her. I said, okay. So I drove through the night up to New York. I stopped at the sheriff's department, told them what I was going to do. There was going to be an impromptu intervention and, you know, not to be surprised if they get a call. And I was working with some of her friends, like, let me know when she's on the bus to go home. I told her, I said, I sent you something, and they've got it at she was staying at a crack hotel at the time. They've got it at the front desk of the hotel. Let me know when you get home so you can pick up the package. Well, there was no package. It was
you.
It was me. Mm-hmm. And she was high. At this point, I found out that she was going back and forth between IV heroin use and smoking crack. And she just smoked crack. And she had the strength of 10 men in her, I swear. Again, she looked horrible. I mean, just burn blisters all over her lips and her hands, and the emaciated. And she was not happy to see me at all. And that's when I told her, I said, the truck is leaving for Tennessee at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Either you're in that truck for a complete reset, or I'm done. Which means you don't have access to your son anymore either. Long story short, the cops did have to come because it was a big brawl and everybody in the crack hotel got involved, and cops ended up coming. Anyway, she was still seeing the guy that had gotten her into it. But she called me the next afternoon and she said, I'll be in that truck. And I took her to see the guy that she was dating, even though I really didn't want to. And I had a stern talk with him, and I said, you talk her out of this, I'll kill you both. And I probably meant it, honestly. But he didn't try to talk her out of it, and she was in the truck. And we had 14 hours of nothing but me and her.
Good old family time.
It was great. You know, and we get back to Tennessee, and I had planned on getting her into a faith-based program around here. But in that drive back from New York, I went over, you know, I'm going to give you 6 months. I expect you to do X, Y, and Z, and this is what I expect from you. Like, I laid it all out for her. Mm-hmm. That I really meant it was going to be a complete reset, and gave her exactly what she could expect from me and exactly what I expected from her. And it was not an easy transition at all, you know, because I was Riley's mom, really. Right. And she was not. And we had tense moments, we did, but she went for a 7-day detox in Knoxville. The faith-based program that I had wanted to get her into didn't work out because she was on thyroid medicine, and you can't have any kind of medication in your system at all.
What?
Yep, they wouldn't, because they don't have any kind of medical staff.
A charge nurse to
right. So even though she was off of everything else, she still needed her thyroid medicine, and I couldn't find a place a program that could take her, because I was looking at like Women of the Well. I think they have a phenomenal program.
Mm-hmm.
The house that Mercy built, they have another amazing program. They didn't have any openings. It was like one roadblock after another. She didn't have insurance, so getting her into a traditional rehab wasn't, and she had already been in and out of 8 of those, so those hadn't worked in the past anyway. But anyway, so after her 7-day detox, she came back to my house, and we made it work, and she actually hit all of the milestones that she needed to before the 6 months was up, and had her own place, and had moved out to the Nashville area before the 6 months was up.
Wow. That is just...
And
that is... oh my gosh. That's awesome. And that is such a story.
And, well... it was amazing, and after the 8.5, 9 years, whatever it was, I finally had a peace. Like, God said, she's done.
You took your breath.
Yeah, you're good. You don't have to worry anymore. And I still had Riley, just because, she got clean and had a really good job out in the Nashville area, got her own place. Like, she was not ready to be a mom yet. And that was okay with me. That was not one of the stipulations. I would have raised Riley. I was in it for the long haul. That was not, that was not my goal, was to get rid of my grandson at all. But she was doing amazing. She had never been to Disney World, and I said, you do everything I'm asking you to do, and I will take you to Disney World. And we celebrated her 6 months clean in Disney World. Just a little side note. But anyway, she built quite a nice life out in the Nashville area, Middle Tennessee, and worked her way up through this warehouse company to, at the time, when she left there, she was making more money there than I make. And that girl, like, I went to college for what I do. But she was doing amazing, and she met a man who has 3 children, and his ex also still suffers from addiction, so he had custody of his 3 kids. And after they had been dating about 2 years, they got married. And it was about 6 months after they got married, they had bought a house. She'd been down here. She'd been clean at that point for 2.5 years, I think. She finally approached me and said, I want to be a mom to Riley. And boy, that was bittersweet. He was my boy. But he loves his mom, and she loves him. And she had done everything she needed to do to have the opportunity to get him back. So we started out with, he finished the school year out here, and I agreed that she could take custody back of him, but I said, can we do it for the summer and regroup at the end of the summer and just make sure everybody's okay with everything before he goes and gets, all of his school transferred out there, and before we really make it like a permanent thing. Can we just kind of do a trial run? And it was amazing and so sad all at the same time, because now I really was an empty nester. But anyway, she took him back. That's got to be 17, that's 3 years ago now that she got custody back. And her husband are still raising all 4 of the kids. It was quite an adjustment for him too, because he was an only child.
Mm-hmm.
And then got thrown into being the oldest of 4 siblings. But everybody worked through it, and I was so beyond thankful and so glad that I had stood on my faith and stood on what God told me.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it didn't happen fast enough for me,
not in our time,
it happened, and it was beautiful. And over the course of the last, well, she's clean and sober 6.5 years now. So over that time, she's done some amazing things. I'm sitting here. I know the camera can't see it, but that little thing with that's painted over there, she painted it for me. My mother's ring. It's not the same quality of my original mother's ring, but it means more to me than my original mother's ring, because she had hawked my mother's ring for drugs, and she knew how much that meant to me, and she, as soon as she could, got me another mother's ring. And when she gave it to me and said that she was sorry,
she meant that.
yeah. And we've had some just amazing times rebuilding our relationship, and watching her become a mom to Riley has been amazing. Just being a grandma to Riley now is absolutely amazing. I think we'll always have kind of a different relationship than I do with my other grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
but that's only because I was mom for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is where I'm really gonna cry. I think the most amazing thing to her story is not only that she made it through, but that God had said to me that she'll make it through and she's going to change people's lives. And I'm not kidding when I say she was making more money than I at this job in a warehouse. She decided she wanted to take a certificate program and become a certified peer counselor. And she did. And she quit that warehouse job, and she took a 50% pay cut to go work at a sheriff's department helping people with post-release plans. And she's getting people into programs and sober living, and she's amazing at it, and she loves what she's doing, and she is making a difference in people's lives, and it's amazing to me to see her doing something that is so fulfilling for her, and that it's not all about the money, and that she's changing people's lives.
I'm so proud of her. No one when I first met her. I think Riley had just went. I think he had just went back to her.
It was shortly after we met that he went back to her.
Yeah. And knowing where she was at, you know, and where she's at now, I couldn't be more proud of that girl.
I know.
She's awesome. And I know what a relief on Mama's heart that is too.
It is.
And there's so many of us out there that gives hope to. We are hoping that it's our turn to get that feeling next.
I do. I don't know. The secret to me getting through it was my faith, really. And I have friends who have had family members, not a situation like mine where they're raising a grandchild or anything like that, but like one in particular, it was her brother, and she would come to me for encouragement, and I'd try so hard, and I did give her encouragement and hope, but he did end up losing his battle and overdosed. And it's stuff like that it's so hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
So hard, because I know that the majority
don't make it out.
Don't make it out. And I don't know if I would have hung in as strongly as I did for that long without God telling me she'll make it. If I hadn't heard that, I don't know. It would have been a lot harder for me. It really would have been.
You stood on His promises.
I did. And she's my biggest accomplishment.
And it's huge, baby. It's huge.
And it's not, I'm not saying that as like bragging. I'm so proud of
as you should be,
what
Mama.
she's done.
As you should be. She's worked hard. Thank you.
She's perfect in the job too, because she's been an addict.
Mm-hmm.
She's been the one telling lies, trying to manipulate situations. She'll call me every once in a while and she'll be like, well, I got this one call and I know that they're just trying to BS me. And she's perfect for it because she understands and can see through when somebody sincerely wants help and just wants to get out of trouble. And
will say or do anything to...
And she's compassionate, but yet she's a tough enough broad that she don't put up with no...
I think that's why me and her get along.
You know exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing this. Well, thank you again for doing this. And I am going to get out of your hair, let you have your evening.
Thank you for doing what you do, because it's important. I didn't have a support network. I didn't, I suffered through a lot of it in silence. So
that's the scariest place to be.
It is.
Going through this.
It is.
And that's why I do what I do, because nobody should have to do that. Nobody should have to feel alone. It's hard enough as it is. Doing it alone is even worse. But thank y'all for watching. I'm going to clean my face up, dry my eyes. Thank y'all for watching. Thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for supporting our little channel. If you have any questions for Miss Melanie, just drop them down in the comments, and we will make sure that they get to her, get her answers, and get posted back up.
Absolutely.
And be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. And much love to each and every one of y'all. We'll see y'all on the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye.